From Valdir Segato's grotesque balloon animal physique that terrified locals who called him the monster, to Kirill Tereshin's horrifically deformed arms that look like they belong in a horror movie. In this video, we're exposing 8 terrifyingly scary-looking bodybuilders whose nightmarish appearances will shock you. Roario dos Santos Alves. Our first terrifying tale begins in the sun-soaked streets of Brazil, where a young man's dream of becoming the Incredible Hulk nearly cost him everything. Roario dos Santos Alves wasn't content with natural muscle growth. He wanted superhuman proportions, and he was willing to risk his life to get them. What makes Romario's story particularly chilling is how his transformation began innocently enough. Like many aspiring bodybuilders, he started with traditional training methods, but his obsession with achieving a Hulk-like physique led him down a path that would make him unrecognizable to his own family. His biceps grew to a staggering 25 inches through the use of synthol, a synthetic filler that creates the illusion of massive muscle mass while actually weakening the underlying tissue. But the true horror of Romario's story isn't just in the numbers, it's in the social isolation that followed. Children who once looked up to him as a role model began calling him a beast and a monster, their innocent eyes reflecting the fear that his appearance now inspired. The man who wanted to be a superhero had become something that frightened the very people he hoped to inspire. The medical consequences were equally terrifying. Doctors discovered that his muscles had turned rock-like from the synthol injections, and he nearly faced amputation of both arms. The substance that was supposed to give him strength had instead created a prison of hardened tissue that threatened to destroy his body from within. The psychological toll was devastating. During his wife's pregnancy, the depression and isolation became so severe that he contemplated suicide. What makes Romario's story even more haunting is the addiction aspect. Like a drug, the synthol injections became compulsive, each dose promising the physique he craved while simultaneously destroying the body he was trying to perfect. The synthetic mixture of oil, painkillers, and alcohol coursed through his arms, creating a grotesque parody of muscular development that served as a daily reminder of his descent into obsession. But Roario wasn't the only one chasing the Hulk dream. The next bodybuilder took it even further. Tony Geraldo. In the sprawling metropolis of Rio de Janeiro, a 49-year-old man has dedicated his entire adult life to becoming something that exists only in comic books. Tony Geraldo, known locally as Hulk, represents a terrifying example of what happens when childhood fascination evolves into adult obsession, transforming the human body into something that defies nature itself. What makes Tony's story particularly disturbing is the calculated nature of his transformation. His 28-inch biceps aren't the result of years of dedicated training. They're the product of injecting potent AB12, a veterinary supplement designed for horses, directly into his arms. The very idea that someone would willingly inject animal medication into their body speaks to a level of desperation and disconnection from reality that's genuinely frightening. The physical toll of Tony's choices extends far beyond his grotesquely enlarged arms. Doctors have warned him about the dangerous stretching of his skin and the development of high blood pressure, but these medical warnings seem to fall on deaf ears. It's as if his obsession has created a psychological armor that deflects rational thought, leaving him trapped in a cycle of self-destruction that he's convinced is self-improvement.
Eu fiz check-up, entendeu? O médico, check-up geral, a primeira coisa, ele perguntou, você faz uso? Faço. Ele, então você para, que você chegou no seu auge.
Perhaps most haunting is the impact on his personal relationships. His wife actively opposes his continued use of veterinary drugs, watching helplessly as the man she married disappears beneath layers of artificially inflated tissue. The strain on their marriage serves as a stark reminder that bodybuilding obsession doesn't just destroy bodies, it destroys lives, relationships, and futures.
Sou casado há 27 anos. Ela me conheceu treinando. Porém, ela não gosta atualmente do tamanho que eu fiquei. Não agrada ela. Ela não gosta.
Tony's daily routine reads like something from a horror story disguised as a fitness regimen. His diet consists of 12,000 calories daily, including 12 bananas and 6 egg whites before each workout. But these aren't the calculated nutritional choices of an athlete. They're the compulsive behaviors of someone whose relationship with food and fitness has become pathological.
Café da manhã, normalmente 10 ovos, como pela manhã 10 ovos, queijo branco, frutas como banana, mamão e melancia. Me alimento a cada 3 horas.
The psychological dimension of Tony's transformation is perhaps the most chilling aspect of his story. His obsession with Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't just admiration. It's become a blueprint for reconstructing his entire identity. He's not trying to become a better version of himself. He's trying to become someone else entirely, someone who exists only in movies and magazines. This disconnect from his own identity has created a man trapped between reality and fantasy, using his own body as the battleground. What's more chilling than one man losing himself to obsession, watching his own brother do the same? Alvaro Pereira. Standing alongside his brother Tony in the pantheon of Brazilian bodybuilding horror stories is Alvaro Pereira, a man whose 28-inch biceps and Conan nickname represent 3 decades of systematic self-modification. What makes Alvaro's story particularly chilling is the sheer duration of his obsession. He's been injecting veterinary drugs into his body since he was just 15 years old, turning his teenage years into a prolonged experiment in human modification. The timeline of Alvaro's transformation reads like a slow-motion disaster. Since the age of 15, he has been injecting potent B12, the same veterinary supplement used by his brother, essentially using his formative years as a testing ground for substances never intended for human consumption. The fact that he began this practice as a teenager speaks to a level of body dysmorphia and risk-taking behavior that's genuinely disturbing. What's perhaps most unsettling about Alvaro's story is the normalization of his choices within his family structure. Unlike his brother Tony, whose wife opposes his drug use, Alvaro's wife and 7 children support his bodybuilding pursuits. This family dynamic creates a terrifying echo chamber where dangerous behavior is not just tolerated but encouraged, suggesting that the psychological damage extends beyond the individual to encompass an entire family system.
Pô, ele vai em casa.
Bastante. Eu costumo falar pra minha esposa que só quem não gosta realmente é.
The medical warnings Alvaro has received paint a picture of a body under siege. Doctors have specifically warned him about the dangerous stretching of his skin, a visual reminder that his body is being pushed beyond its natural limits. The skin, humanity's most visible boundary between self and world, has become a canvas for his obsession, stretched to accommodate tissue that shouldn't exist. Perhaps most chilling is Alvaro's own admission about his relationship with the substances he injects. He claims to have his addiction under control, a statement that reveals both self-awareness and self-deception in equal measure. The very fact that he recognizes his behavior as an addiction while simultaneously claiming control over it demonstrates the complex psychological gymnastics required to maintain such a destructive lifestyle. The nickname Conan isn't just for fun. It shows how deeply Alvaro has rebuilt his identity. He's not trying to improve himself. He's trying to become a fictional barbarian warrior. He no longer sees his body as his own, but as a project to fit someone else's fantasy. Alvaro's 30-year transformation is both impressive and disturbing. Such dedication might be admirable in other cases, but here it highlights how obsession can lead to self-destruction. Alvaro chased a fantasy, but the next man injected himself with something far darker: acceptance of death. Arlindo de Souza, Montanha. In the coastal city of Olinda, Brazil, a former bricklayer named Arlindo de Souza has constructed something far more disturbing than any building he ever worked on. He's built himself into a living monument to the dangers of unchecked obsession. Known locally as Montanha, the mountain, Arlindo's 29-inch biceps represent the largest arms on our list. But size isn't what makes his story truly terrifying. It's the calculated acceptance of death that accompanies his transformation. What sets Arlindo apart from other extreme bodybuilders is his brutal honesty about his methods and their consequences. He openly admits to injecting mineral oil and alcohol directly into his muscles, substances that would be considered toxic waste in any other context. This isn't the secretive shame of hidden addiction. This is the public declaration of a man who has chosen self-destruction as a path to fame.
Por exemplo, se uma pessoa não tem geneticamente, não é favorável a ganhar músculos, ou se ela tem um erro de treinamento em que há uma assimetria, ela começa a se injetar essa substância para preencher os espaços e fazer com que haja um aumento do aspecto muscular. Ele não ganha força, ele ganha o aspecto físico.
The true horror of Arlindo's story emerges when we consider the human cost of his obsession. His friend Paulinho died from similar injection practices, serving as a literal corpse-strewn warning sign that Arlindo simply stepped over on his way to achieving even larger arms. The fact that witnessing his friend's death didn't deter him reveals a level of psychological commitment to his transformation that transcends rational self-preservation.
Seu com ele? Tá bem essa pessoa? Ou morreu?
Faleceu.
Bom amigo esse, hein? Então, e aí mesmo assim não caiu a ficha, que não foi quando você parou de usar, já tô descobrindo tudo.
The medical consensus on Arlindo's condition reads like a death sentence delivered in clinical language. Doctors have warned him about the potential need for amputation, essentially telling him that the choice isn't whether his arms will kill him, but whether they'll take the rest of his body with them. The fact that he continues his injections, despite this prognosis, suggests a man who has moved beyond mere body dysmorphia into something approaching suicidal ideation disguised as bodybuilding.
Não.
só que isso pode vir a causar um problema muito sério pra você no futuro. Agora eu tô te dando uma orientação médica.
É, ele é médico.
Eu acho
Sabe
que é
como
uma questão de
médico, né?
você...
What makes Arlindo's story particularly disturbing is the social dynamic that has developed around his transformation. His biceps, which are literally larger than some people's waists, have made him a local celebrity, with women reportedly admiring his physique. This positive reinforcement for clearly self-destructive behavior creates a feedback loop where social validation encourages increasingly dangerous choices.
E o que te dá tesão ter esse negócio? Você acha que a mulherada gosta? Como é que é?
Algumas pessoas gostam, né? E algumas não gostam.
Não, mas pra você,
Pra mim eu adoro.
você acha bonitão?
Eu acho.
Abalou?
The substances Arlindo injects into his body read like a recipe for industrial disaster rather than muscle enhancement. In addition to mineral oil and alcohol, he admits to prior use of steroids and horse vitamins, essentially turning his circulatory system into a toxic waste dump. The cumulative effect of these substances isn't just physical transformation, it's systematic poisoning with a side effect of enlarged muscles. Arlindo's arms shocked doctors. The next bodybuilders baffled the world. Mustafa Ismail, Egyptian Popeye. From the ancient land of Egypt comes perhaps the most controversial figure on our list, a man whose 31-inch biceps once earned him a place in the Guinness World Records before the very authenticity of his physique sparked debates that would ultimately reshape how the world views extreme bodybuilding. Mustafa Ismail, known as the Egyptian Popeye, represents something uniquely terrifying, the possibility that everything we're seeing might be an elaborate deception. What makes Mustafa's story particularly unsettling is the sheer cartoonish impossibility of his physique. His 31-inch biceps, disproportionate to his relatively normal body frame, create an almost surreal appearance that seems to mock the very concept of human anatomy. Unlike the obviously artificial appearance of synthol users, Mustafa's arms occupy an uncanny valley where they're simultaneously too perfect and too imperfect to be real.
Getting bigger. Like I eat a lot of protein and like my nutrition based on a lot of protein and carbohydrate.
The controversy surrounding Mustafa's physique reads like a detective story with life or death stakes. Accusations of synthol use have followed him throughout his career. But unlike other bodybuilders who eventually admit to artificial enhancement, Mustafa has maintained his innocence with an almost religious fervor. This insistence on naturalness in the face of overwhelming skepticism creates a psychological profile that's genuinely disturbing.
Plus, my genes help me, like family-wise. I just do it to, to look better. And to it's a good feeling to look better and to be in the best shape.
The institutional response to Mustafa's claims reveals the broader impact of his story on the bodybuilding community. Guinness World Records eventually stopped accepting claims for largest muscle measurements due to verification difficulties, essentially admitting that the pursuit of extreme size had outpaced their ability to distinguish between natural and artificial enhancement. Mustafa's physique became so controversial that it changed the rules for everyone. What's particularly chilling about Mustafa's story is the psychological investment required to maintain such an elaborate deception, if indeed it is one. His claims of lifting 500 pounds and training twice daily for over a decade suggest either superhuman dedication or superhuman delusion. Either possibility is genuinely frightening in its implications.
If you can just try 3,000 gram protein a day, if you can take this, your stomach can take it, and you can take a lot of 6 meals a day.
The social media response to Mustafa's physique provides a window into public perception of extreme bodybuilding. Online discussions frequently dismiss his claims with harsh language, calling his physique fake and comparing him to cartoon characters. But this public skepticism seems only to strengthen his resolve to prove his authenticity. The mysterious aspects of Mustafa's story add another layer of unease to his tale. Reports suggest he disappeared from public view in 2016, leaving behind only questions and controversy. This disappearance creates a gap in the narrative that's somehow more disturbing than any confirmed outcome. We're left wondering whether he achieved his goals, suffered consequences, or simply faded into obscurity. The international dimension of Mustafa's story, his move from Egypt to the United States in pursuit of better training facilities, suggests the global nature of bodybuilding obsession. His willingness to relocate his entire life in service of arm development speaks to a level of commitment that transcends normal recreational activity and enters the realm of total lifestyle reconstruction. Perhaps most terrifying is the possibility that Mustafa's claims are true. If his physique is indeed natural, it suggests that the human body can be pushed to extremes that defy our understanding of physiology. If his claims are false, it suggests a level of psychological investment in deception that's equally disturbing. Either way, his story challenges our assumptions about what's possible and what's healthy. Just when you thought things couldn't get more disturbing, the next bodybuilder proves they absolutely can. Kirill Tereshin, Russian Popeye. From the frozen wastes of Siberia comes perhaps the most recent and medically documented horror story on our list, the tale of Kirill Tereshin, a young Russian whose desperate pursuit of muscular fame has resulted in a series of medical emergencies that read like scenes from a medical thriller. Known as the Russian Popeye, Kirill's story is still unfolding, with 2025 bringing new chapters of surgical intervention and deformed tissue that serve as a real-time cautionary tale. What makes Kirill's story uniquely terrifying is the accelerated timeline of his transformation and destruction. In just 10 days, he injected enough synthol to increase his arm circumference by 10 inches, essentially creating a time-lapse version of the gradual decline we see in other extreme bodybuilders. This compressed timeline makes his story feel like watching a car crash in slow motion, horrifying but impossible to look away from.
Я был очень худым. Я очень играл долго в компьютерные игры. И у меня, как вы видите, сутулая спина. И у меня шея как гусем. Да, меня это очень сильно.
The medical details of Kirill's condition read like something from a horror novel. Surgeons have been forced to remove 3 pounds of dead muscle tissue from his arms, essentially performing partial amputations on a living person. The fact that his own body tissue had died while still attached to his living frame creates an image that's both medically fascinating and viscerally disturbing.
Сейчас найду легкий способ, как накачаться по-быстрому. И в интернете очень много видел людей с огромными руками. Дело в том, что мне нравятся фриковские формы, необычные, то есть овальные, закругленные. И я перед армией
The ongoing nature of Kirill's medical crisis makes his story particularly unnerving. Recent reports from 2025 indicate he was hospitalized again for issues related to his oil-injected biceps, with his arms now described as deformed, suggesting that the consequences of his choices continue to unfold years after the initial injections. This ongoing deterioration creates a sense of inevitable doom that pervades his entire story. What's particularly chilling about Kirill's psychological profile is his apparent disconnect from the severity of his condition. Despite multiple surgeries, warnings from medical professionals, and visible deformation of his arms, reports suggest he has continued to engage in risky behaviors. This persistence in the face of obvious consequences suggests a level of psychological dysfunction that transcends simple body dysmorphia. The social media aspect of Kirill's story adds a modern dimension to bodybuilding horror. His transformation and subsequent medical crises have been documented and shared online, creating a public spectacle of self-destruction that serves as both entertainment and warning. The fact that his suffering has become content for social media consumption adds another layer of contemporary horror to his tale. The international medical attention Kirill's case has received speaks to the unprecedented nature of his condition. Multiple surgeries have been required to remove the petroleum jelly and dead tissue, essentially requiring doctors to pioneer new techniques for dealing with the consequences of extreme body modification. His body has become a medical case study in the limits of human resilience. The personal cost of Kirill's transformation extends beyond the physical. Reports of relationship difficulties, including issues with his fiancée and broader social isolation, suggest that his pursuit of physical extremes has cost him human connections. The man who sought attention and admiration through his physique has instead found himself isolated by the very transformation he sought. Perhaps most disturbing is the systemic nature of Kirill's health problems. Reports indicate ongoing issues with kidney function and potential brain problems, suggesting that his synthol use has created cascading health issues throughout his body. What began as localized arm enhancement has become a whole-body medical crisis. The age factor in Kirill's story adds another dimension of tragedy. As a young man, he had decades of life ahead of him before his transformation began. The fact that he may have permanently compromised his health and appearance in his early 20s creates a sense of wasted potential that's genuinely heartbreaking. The most recent updates from 2025 show Kirill hospitalized with deformed arms, serving as a stark reminder that his story continues to unfold in real time. Unlike historical cases, we're witnessing the ongoing consequences of extreme bodybuilding as they happen, making his tale feel immediate and urgent. While Kirill's arms are still being stitched back together, the next figure on our list has already paid the ultimate price: Valdir Segato. In the sprawling urban landscape of Sao Paulo, Brazil, lived a man whose transformation from construction worker to social media sensation ended in the most tragic way possible, with his death at age 55 on his own birthday. Valdir Segato, known as the Brazilian Hulk, represents the ultimate cautionary tale of extreme bodybuilding, a story that begins with teenage drug addiction and ends with a funeral that serves as a warning to others who might follow his path. What makes Valdir's story particularly haunting is the transformation arc that defined his entire adult life. He evolved from a skinny drug-addicted sex-addicted teenager into a hulking figure known locally as the Monster, a metamorphosis that seemed to represent redemption but actually masked a different form of self-destruction. The irony that his escape from drug addiction led him to a different but equally dangerous form of substance abuse creates a tragic symmetry to his life story. The physical transformation Valdir achieved through his synthol injections created an appearance that was simultaneously impressive and deeply unsettling. His 23-inch biceps and overall balloon animal physique defied natural proportions to such an extent that his appearance seemed to mock the very concept of human anatomy. The description of his physique as resembling a balloon animal captures the artificial, inflated quality that made his appearance both fascinating and disturbing. What's particularly chilling about Valdir's story is his apparent acceptance of the risks involved in his transformation. Despite medical warnings about the potential for strokes, infections, and nerve damage from his daily synthol injections, he continued his routine with an almost fatalistic determination. This wasn't ignorance of the consequences, it was a calculated decision to prioritize short-term fame over long-term survival. The social media dimension of Valdir's story adds a modern element to the traditional bodybuilding horror narrative. His status as a TikTok star suggests that his transformation wasn't just personal obsession, but also a calculated attempt to monetize his extreme appearance. The fact that his self-destruction became content for social media consumption adds a particularly contemporary form of horror to his tale. The circumstances surrounding Valdir's death create an atmosphere of inevitability that's genuinely disturbing. He passed away on July 26, 2022, on his 55th birthday, after being hospitalized for shortness of breath, a confluence of timing that seems almost poetically tragic. The fact that his last day on Earth coincided with what should have been a celebration of his life creates a narrative symmetry that's both heartbreaking and horrifying. The medical speculation surrounding Valdir's death points to the systematic damage that years of synthol injection had inflicted on his body. While the exact cause of death wasn't definitively established, the likelihood that his death was related to complications from his long-term synthol use serves as a stark reminder that the consequences of extreme bodybuilding can be fatal. The inspiration sources for Valdir's transformation reveal the role that popular culture played in his self-destruction. His physique was inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger and the cartoon character He-Man, suggesting that his pursuit wasn't based on realistic human models, but on fictional representations of masculinity. This disconnect from reality created a situation where his goals were inherently unachievable through natural means. The local reputation Valdir earned as the Monster speaks to the complex relationship between fear and admiration that surrounded his transformation. While some people were genuinely intimidated by his appearance, others were drawn to the spectacle he represented. This dual reaction created a social dynamic that both celebrated and feared his choices, reinforcing his commitment to maintaining his extreme appearance. Last, but by no means least, we come to the man whose body didn't just break down, it blew apart. Greg Valentino. Our final terrifying tale takes us to New York, where a man named Greg Valentino became a legend for all the wrong reasons. He's literally known as the man whose arms exploded, a nickname that perfectly captures the horror movie quality of his bodybuilding journey. What makes Greg's story uniquely disturbing isn't just the physical catastrophe that befell his arms, but the way he's transformed personal tragedy into a decades-long media career built on cautionary tales and controversy. The medical crisis that defines Greg's legacy reads like something from a medical textbook on worst-case scenarios. His biceps grew from 21 to 28 inches through steroid use, but the real horror began when an infection caused his arm to literally burst open, requiring medical intervention to drain the infected tissue. The image of a human arm spontaneously rupturing under the pressure of artificially enhanced muscle creates a visceral sense of body horror that's hard to shake.
Like, this guy looked like little Arnold Schwarzenegger walking around, and I was natural.
For sure.
You were bodybuilding back then, right?
I got into it in my 20s.
What makes Greg's story particularly unsettling is the ongoing controversy surrounding his methods and honesty. While he openly admits to extensive steroid use, he vehemently denies accusations of synthol injection, creating a complex narrative where partial truth mingles with potential deception. This ambiguity makes it impossible to know exactly what happened to his body, adding an element of mystery to an already disturbing story.
Well, John, you remember reading the magazines back then.
Yes.
You never heard about steroids. The word steroids, I never heard of until like 1980, 81, or, and then when I was out in Gold's Gym, I didn't even know what steroids were.
Legal dimensions of Greg's story add another layer of darkness to his tale. His arrest in 2001 for dealing steroids suggests that his relationship with performance-enhancing drugs extended beyond personal use into criminal distribution. This criminal element transforms his story from one of personal obsession into one of systemic corruption within the bodybuilding community. The psychological profile that emerges from Greg's media appearances is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of his story. Unlike other extreme bodybuilders bodybuilders who express regret or acknowledge their mistakes, Greg has built an entire career around defending and explaining his choices. His media presence, including TV appearances and fitness magazine writing, suggests a man who has found a way to monetize his own destruction, turning personal tragedy into professional opportunity.
John, I still do that to this day. To this day. Now, tomorrow, I'm a creature of habit. Like, for instance, let me tell you when I say I'm a creature of habit.
The physical aftermath of Greg's arm explosion creates a permanent reminder of the consequences of extreme bodybuilding. The burst bicep left him with a visible dent in his arm, essentially scarring his body with evidence of his past choices. This physical marking serves as a constant visual reminder that the pursuit of extreme size can leave permanent damage that no amount of subsequent training can repair. What's particularly chilling about Greg's story is the way it illustrates how extreme bodybuilding can become a form of performance art. His transformation from competitive bodybuilder to media personality suggests that the line between athlete and entertainer has become completely blurred. The fact that his exploding arms became his claim to fame reveals a culture that celebrates disaster as much as it celebrates success.
If I'm pumped and I'm keeping that pump, why stop? That's the right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So I just keep going, and I can keep. Maybe it's a genetic thing. I'm 64.
The longevity of Greg's career in bodybuilding media, spanning decades after his competitive days ended, speaks to the morbid fascination that surrounds extreme bodybuilding stories. His continued presence in fitness media well into 2025 suggests that audiences remain captivated by tales of bodybuilding gone wrong, creating a market for cautionary tales that paradoxically might encourage others to take similar risks. The nickname, "The Man Whose Arms Exploded," has become so synonymous with Greg's identity that it's essentially replaced his actual accomplishments as a bodybuilder. This reduction of a human being to a single catastrophic event creates a form of identity prison where his entire sense of self becomes tied to a moment of physical disaster. The psychological impact of living with such a reputation must be profound and disturbing.
Now I'm already built. You know what I mean? I'm already jacked. You know, I started boxing a little bit with Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business News.
The controversy surrounding Greg's arms extends beyond their explosion to questions about their artificial enhancement. Public speculation continues to suggest that his extreme size was achieved through synthol injection rather than natural development, creating an ongoing debate about authenticity that has never been definitively resolved. This uncertainty adds another layer of unease to his story. The transformation of Greg's personal crisis into public entertainment raises disturbing questions about how society consumes stories of self-destruction. His willingness to repeatedly tell and retell the story of his exploding arms for media consumption suggests either remarkable resilience or profound psychological dysfunction. Either possibility is genuinely unsettling in its implications. The fact that Greg has outlived many of his contemporaries in extreme bodybuilding, including Valdir Segato, creates an ironic twist to his story. The man whose arms literally exploded has somehow survived longer than those whose transformations appeared less immediately catastrophic. This survival paradox adds another layer of complexity to understanding the long-term consequences of extreme bodybuilding. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.